welcome everybody to Australian Hypnosis Conference. I am Trish Pellen and I'm here today with Mel Sebastian. Now, I'm going to be real because as you guys know, I'm always very transparent. Mel decided to put in this application. I did not even know. And then when I said to her, "You're in," her response was, "You chose such a controversial topic. Thank you so much for letting me talk about it." So, the topic, autism and ADHD in the therapy room, simple practical tools for neuroaffirming hypnotherapy. So, Mel, what got you interested in working with neurodivergent people?
Well, I suppose I've always worked with neurodivergent people,
Yeah.
and I'm neurodivergent myself, so it makes a lot of sense.
Ah, yes.
My first career was in teaching. I was a teacher for around 10 years,
Mhm.
and my very first job was working for Aspect, Autism Spectrum Australia, an autism specific school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was trained as an art teacher, but my first job was in special education, and that has just continued. So I, after that, I was working in high schools in learning support, and I always knew that working with neurodivergent students was where my passion was. And
Mhm.
then it wasn't until I had my daughter, and she ended up getting diagnosed as being neurodivergent, that her psychologist went, I think the apple might have fallen from my tree. Nice way. So when I retrained as a therapist, I've found that working with my neurodivergent clients is really where my passion is. I love working with everyone, but
Mhm.
when I'm working with someone that's neurodivergent and they tell me they're neurodivergent and then I tell them I am, it's almost like this moment of going,
Yes, it just
take the mask off.
yeah, yeah. Did it change your life when you got a diagnosis?
Yeah, it did. It
Yeah.
did. Because I think for a lot of late diagnosed, I would say especially women, a lot of late diagnosed women of my age, like I'm 40. So
I still don't
when
believe
we
that.
were young, what's that?
I still don't believe you're 40.
I think I just keep coming to the conferences for your ego boost. No, it's more than that. Yeah, but when you're younger, like, at my age, when we're younger and we don't know that we're neurodivergent, we put it down to things like, oh, she just has anxiety. She's just a bit shy. She's just, awkward. And so all these things end up feeling like not good enough feelings,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah,
then when you get validation that it's like, no, there is nothing wrong with your brain.
yeah.
Your
You have
brain
a
is
different brain
different.
type.
Yeah, it's just a bit different. It's like saying, well, you've been trying to be an Android all your life, but you're really an Apple,
Yeah.
right? You're really an iPhone. And it's kind of life-changing because you can then you do spend a bit of time looking back on your past and kind of grieving the part of you that beat yourself up for feeling like it wasn't fitting
Yeah,
in. You
yeah,
know what? You don't need to.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can find the right space where you generally and authentically fit in.
And honestly, like I feel so much pride towards people that have been diagnosed later on because
Yeah.
you survived 100% of your bad days. And those bad days were a lot tougher than those who weren't neurodivergent. You
So,
survived them. You took it in your stride, even though you were the weird kid or the awkward kid or something like that. So,
yeah,
kudos to all of those people out there that are not quite sure
yeah.
and keep on going because you're doing amazing. What is the one thing that you would love every single person that's neurodivergent to know?
Oh, that's a good question. The one thing that I would like the neurodivergent people to know,
Yeah.
that there's, like I said, there's nothing wrong with our brains. They're absolutely wonderful. And in some cases, in many ways, even with my own brain, I know people use the term superpowers a little bit sort of flamboyantly, but it's it's really, there are some things that we can do so well because of our neurodivergent brains that neurotypical people would go, oh God, I couldn't do that. You know, when we get into hyperfocus, when I'm talking about something that I love or I'm working on something I love, people, I'm serious, people would literally be standing next to me talking to me. And it's like my ears stop working and I'm just like straight into it. I've even had to tell
Me.
some of my staff members in the past, I'm not actually deaf, but I do go temporarily deaf when I'm in hyperfocus. And I think that might be why I'm good at doing self-hypnosis because I can tune.
And that's just it, because neurodivergent is fantastic for hypnotherapy because hypnotherapy is focused attention.
Mm. That's it. It's all it is, right? So
And
if you can hyperfocus, then wow,
what
you've
what
been.
what is something that therapists, especially hypnotherapists, tend to navigate incorrectly when when a neurodivergent client presents themselves, diagnosed or undiagnosed, it doesn't matter. But what is something that hypnotherapists tend to do incorrectly when they come across these clients?
The biggest thing that I find, well, okay, there's two things that
Mhm.
I've sort of noticed. One is making sure we're using the right language because that can be kind of off-putting as well.
Yeah,
Right? So if you're using the wrong language straight up with a neurodivergent client who knows they're neurodivergent and is diagnosed, right, then that can kind of feel a little bit invalidating.
and
The
that would
second,
remove the rapport as well.
exactly right, because then they're like, oh, I don't know if this person, it loses their confidence in you as someone who understands what their diagnosis actually entails,
Yeah.
right? The second one is that we sometimes as hypnotherapists we tend to think, oh well, the way that I work is really successful with say 80 to 90% of my clients, and then there might be a small percentage we're like, oh, maybe it just didn't work for them because they're not so good at hypnosis. But maybe a percentage of people just needed it done differently, right?
Good point.
Maybe their neurodivergent brains needed it either a different place,
Hmm.
different way of explaining, some of the metaphors that we use,
Hmm.
for someone who's autistic can sometimes not land the right way,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, and that doesn't mean everyone that's autistic. I'm ADHD and autistic, right? I love metaphors. I'm brilliant. I love anyone can throw them at me, and my little brain goes, yes, 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 accept it. But for some people that are autistic, if you're just throwing these stories at them and they're not
Not
relating it,
landing.
it's not landing,
Yeah.
then okay to be more explicit,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay to actually unpack things during your session with them while they're in hypnosis, and
Yeah.
then their little brain goes, yes, I get it, and it's beautiful and it makes sense.
I
But
think also a
those
lot of
nuances help.
yeah, I think a lot of hypnotherapists also rely on feedback.
Mm,
And there are some people, especially if autistic, they're not going to give you the feedback. They're not going to go, I quit smoking or
yeah.
something like that. They're going to process first and then they might get back to you.
Mhm.
But you don't have to do that. That's one thing I hear quite common in the industry. They're like, "Oh, I had a client, I wasn't quite sure if hypnosis works." And I'm like, let them process. Of course it worked. Some of us process slower. Some of us go, you know.
Exactly. And it's nice to plant that little suggestion of, I don't know if this will happen today or in a few days or in a week from now, but it will happen.
It will
And
happen.
then that sort of it almost gives permission for the brain to process at the rate that it needs to process.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
And
absolutely.
sometimes with that feedback, when we're talking more specifically about neurodivergent people, sometimes I find there's two things
Mhm.
that sometimes the feedback can be quite blunt, right? And it can be straight up, no, I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't make sense. I'm not feeling it.
Yep.
Like this chair doesn't, I don't like the texture, and that feedback, it might sound blunt. That is like your best friend.
Yeah.
That feedback is your best friend because it doesn't matter how bluntly it's given to you. You've then got more pieces of the puzzle of how you can adapt your session to make it better for them.
Yeah.
The ones that are harder, people like me, right, who are used to a lifetime of just masking and pretending everything's okay when it's not. So if you've got someone like me who has auditory sensitivities, right? So if someone's dinging a bell near my ear, they've got the sound bowls going and all that stuff, those metallic noises,
Hmm.
they cause me pain,
Yeah.
right? But I'm not the sort of person who would actually tell anyone that because I don't want to hurt the therapist's feelings,
People are too
right?
polite.
Yes, and but that's a really common thing with a lot of neurodivergent people is that we're used to just going, okay, yep, I hate the texture of this chair, but that music, there's some noise in that relaxation music that's hurting my brain. There's a weird smell in the room. They've got, a mister going with essential oils that to them is too much,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But they're not likely to tell you that unless you actually ask and get that feedback,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes even just extra layers of check-ins that's not in an obvious way, because it can also seem a little bit demeaning if I
Yeah.
remember I had one therapist say to me, "Oh, you should just get your weighted blanket out," and I'm like, "Excuse me." Like you're assuming because I'm autistic, I have a weighted blanket. I don't.
Yeah. It's the boxing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's cringe. Right? So there's a subtle art.
Yeah. 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 The subtle art of kindness.
Mm, yeah, and getting that feedback in a way that's informed, right?
Mm,
So,
yeah. Yeah.
for some hypnotherapists that haven't had a lot of perhaps education or experience
Mhm.
in that neurodivergent realm, they might not even think twice about having the lavender blasting in the room. They might think, oh no,
I
everyone
can't.
likes that.
I can't stand lavender. It gives me shits.
Yeah, so there you go, right?
Grandma's toilet to me. I'm like, oh my God, lavender. It's like it's almost a weed in Australia. There's so much.
So imagine Trish trying to do a hypnotherapy session on someone and all they can smell is toilet, right?
I
You're
want to
trying
do
to get
that.
them to be in a relaxing, beautiful place, and they're like, yeah, no, I'm not there, Mel, because all I can think of is the smell of toilet or being in a toilet.
Yeah, yeah, very distracting. That's for sure. That's for sure. Because it is their structure of reality, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
there a line? I'll ask the hard question now because, all right, let me explain where I'm coming from. Okay. As 40-odd-year-old women, we were raised in a very different time. Okay. We were raised in a time of like, stop your sooking, get it done, strengthen up, whatever, right? So we come from a very different time. Is there the line between pandering and supporting that is being crossed?
Okay, that's a really good question. And my gut instinct is to say, not really.
Yeah.
Not really. When someone is coming to you in your therapy space, our job essentially is to meet them where they are, to
Okay.
find what their needs are, to find every way that we can facilitate a comfortable environment, a sense of safety. Because when I'm doing hypnotherapy, I also do counseling, but particularly when I'm doing hypnotherapy, I'm fully aware that if I want someone to be able to lower their guard so that I can help them and get into that subconscious part of their brain where, if there's a security system going because of lavender in the room or whatever it is, right? I need to do everything I can to be able to help them to be able to do the work they need to do,
Yeah.
right? And they can't do it if they're sitting there feeling like their skin's itching because of the blanket is all yucky and fiber and wool or something.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really hard for them to then, like you said at the start, to focus, right?
Mm.
And all trance is focus. So if we have to, pander to someone to be able to help them focus, then that's just what you have to do, isn't
I
it?
I admit I had one particular client. She was one of those tough, stubborn teenagers sort of thing,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And every time I met up with her, I'd whip off my professional jacket, I'd throw on my leather jacket, I'd wear my leather cuffs and stuff like that. And I knew her language, and I'd walk in and I'd go, "Oh, how the fuck are you, babe? Let's sort this shit out, yeah?" And
Yes.
she loved it. She got leaps and bounds because I literally sat down not as the therapist, as
Mm,
the cool 30-year-old woman back then, where she
yeah.
was like, "Oh, I'm not going to turn into my mum." And I'm like, "Nah, nah, nah, don't worry about your mum here. Let's get on with it, yeah?" Because that's what
You're
she
so, you're
wanted.
so right. Yeah, like that. And I think we do that in general with all of our clients, don't we? Like we always trying, whether it's in I do joke about that sometimes that I have a few different sets of Mels. I've got like the Bogan Mel and I've got the prim and proper, polished Mel.
Oh,
Um,
same. Got the
yeah,
proper push.
yeah. A very polite Mel. And then I've got the silly Mel.
Hmm.
Right? I've got the deliberately childish Mel because when you're working, especially when you're working with young people, right? You've got to make it fun if you want them to keep coming back.
Well, I don't want to go to a therapist
Can't
that,
be crying every session. They're not going to say, "Yeah, yeah, Mel, I can't wait to go back and see Mel."
oh, look at that. I don't want to go to a therapist that's all stiff and rigid. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
no, no, no. So thank you so much for that insight, Mel. Everybody truly appreciates it. I cannot wait to hear your talk. I don't mind if it was a controversial topic because I fucking love it. I fucking love it. So get your bum on a seat and listen to Mel. She not only has experience, but she's living proof of it as well. So please get your bum on a seat at Australian Hypnosis Conference, and we'll see you all in the future. Bye bye.
Bye.